Now that we've learned a little bit about adding color to our HTML through the use of style sheets, and specifically by applying color rules to text and fonts within our HTML, we're going to learn how to add some additional color to our pages now. I'm going to go ahead and open the Lakeland.css style sheet. This is the one that's controlling the current HTML layout of the page we're working with. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the H1 rule. As your book specifies, they want us to add a color to that rule. Just before the closing curly brace, add a color designation. We're going to put a space, the word white, and then close out the name value pair with a semicolon. Before I go any further in the book's directions, I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to reload this page. Watch what happens to the H1 designated text in this page. The Lakeland Reads Bed and Breakfast heading. It disappeared. Well, and really it didn't disappear. It just turned white against a white background. You can see if I highlight it, it's still there. This is one example of why you have to be really careful when you start working with colors. It can do some things that are sort of odd to your code and make things unusable on your page. So I'm going to go back to the actual style sheet, and we're going to finish the specifications given in the book for the H1 selector. The additional rule they ask us to type is background. And in this case, instead of using a color name like white or green or red, we're actually going to go back to the RGB code that we used in the last video. And we'll put a semicolon to close out that name value pair. Again, I'm going to go ahead and save this and check it. I like to save and check my work frequently, even if the book says do not save it at this time. Go to the web browser, reload it, and now you can see the text is white, but it's surrounded by a by a green background, so the white still sticks out. Let's go back to the code and keep working on what the book is asking us to do. In step 2, it's asking us to insert a blank line above the closing curly brace for the contact style. Remember, we added the contact style. And we are going to add the designation background. In this case, again, they're asking us to use the RGB format. Remember, almost anytime you use color in style sheets, and maybe every time, you can use different formats. The RGB or the simple written word, white, green, red. But in this case, they're giving us an example of actually using the RGB number. Next, they want us to insert a blank line above the curly brace for the box style. So we'll find the box style. And there's our blank line. Again, we're going to use the RGB format for the background. We'll save. Go back to the web browser, reload. And before I reload, you should think about what you think is going to happen. We've added 2 additional background colors. So after the first one, it made this piece of the background green. Let's see what happens with what we've added just now. If it's taken the contact area and added kind of a yellowish brown background color to it. Now I'm going to go back to the text editor one more time, style sheet, and we're asked to go just before the closing curly brace of the H1 tag. We're going to add a blank line. And then type a new tag, Patty. We haven't seen this one before. And we're going to put a colon, and there's a measurement, 0.25. or 0.25. Then we're going to do a semicolon to close out that name value pair. We'll save the document. Then we're going to go to the name selector. We're going to add a new item just before the closing curly brace. This item is going to be font, weight, bold. Now you should remember this from a previous video. Now will the name not only be in color, green you may remember, but it should also be in bold. Also keep in mind that we took the H1 tag and added padding to it. Let's see what that does to the actual HTML when it's rendered. I'm going to go ahead and reload right now. Let's pay special attention to the area around the H1 tag. See what padding has done to that. And what we find is that the padding tag doesn't appear to have done anything to that. So we're going to have to go back to our code and take a look at it, specifically our cascading style sheet code, which set up that rule. The other thing that looks different compared to the figure D14 in your book is the fact that this still has a white background instead of the yellow one that's shown in your book. So let's go back to the code and see what we can figure out here. I'm going to pull up the lakeland.css file, and the first thing I want to look at is the padding for the H1, and I have it right here. You notice I have a designation, a name, a padding, a value of 0.25, and then a semicolon. And that is actually where my error is. I need to put some kind of measurement there, and that should actually be 0.25 EM. So the code didn't understand what I was trying to measure or what type of unit I was trying to use. So I have to add that in. That will fix that portion. The other piece we have to look at is the color of the background of the box. The picture in your book showed it as kind of a yellow, but when we just looked at it in the browser, it still looked white. So if we look at this code here, this name value pair, you can see it's not even really a pair. It just has the word background, and then there's no separator. What we really need is a colon for the separator and then the RGB designation. Let's see if this makes a difference, correcting the two errors, adding the measurement unit to the padding and adding an actual legitimate name value pair for the background of the box. I think will make a difference. We're going to go ahead and save this. Then we will go back to the browser. I'm going to reload the browser. Again, let's watch this H1 area up here, see if anything changes with that box size. All right. So, in fact, it did. You can see we have a box size that has more padding around the edge of the words, around the edge of the font, and that's where the padding designation comes in. Now, as you look at the background of this box, it may be very difficult to tell. It's a very light color that's been specified for this box as compared to the area outside the box. And I'm not sure how it's really going to show up on your video, but it is actually a little yellowish pink color as compared to the white outside the box. Just to show you that this really did work, I'm going to change the designation on that box background from the designation given in your book. Let's get rid of that, and I'll replace it just with green temporarily. This is the word green. Save this file, and we will reload it in the browser, and you can see exactly what happened there. So you can take a box or any area in Style Sheet and apply a background color to it. Again, I'm going to go back to Style Sheet one more time, bring it back to just the way the publisher had asked for it in your book. Save it one more time. Then we'll reload this page. And again, it's hard to see the distinction, but there is a background color here that's different than the background color outside the box. If you've completed this, you're ready to move on to the next exercise. Great job.